All right, let's get right on with working with some for loops and getting some practice in on how we might use them. So I'm going to go over these two problems I put together for you. And one at a time, I'm going to have you try to execute the problem and then pause the video and then resume it when you think you finished it. And we'll go over how I would complete it. And we'll do that one at a time. So the first problem, let's go over what it is and then you can pause the video. So today is roll call. Loop through and have a computer yell out or console log each of the following names. So of these let people variable, it has John, Mike, Joe, and Sue. So pause the video and try to loop through it and console log each of them just right on over here. All right. Hopefully that was enough time for you. Now, let's see. How should we do this? We really should always just start with putting down the correct syntax for whatever you were using. Now we need to remember the first thing is we need to initialize something. So let I equal to the starting value of 0. Now, as long as I is less than some particular number of times we want to loop. In this case, we want to loop through 4 times, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we're starting at 0, we want to go 0, 1, 2, 3. So we want to go until I is less than 4 because we want to hit at least the third index. And after each loop, when we've executed some stuff and we hit this guy and we're ready to loop back around, what do? We want to I plus plus. So we want to increment I by 1. So now if we were to say console.log and we place people inside there and we say, let's just drop our I in there because I will first be 0. Then it will console log people at 0, which is John. So John will show up. Then we'll hit the end of our block and then we'll have to execute this. So we'll add 1 to I and it will become it'll be I equals 1. So is 1 less than 4? Yes, it is. So then people at 1 is Mike. And then we hit the end, we have to increment up again. So now we're at 2. So is 2 less than 4? Yeah, it is. So people at 2, that's Joe right here. Then we're gonna hit the end of our statement after we console log Joe, and we're gonna increment from 2 to 3. Now, is 3 less than 4? Yes, 3 is less than 4. So we're gonna console log people at 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So we're gonna console log Sue. So now we've console logged them all, and we'll hit the end. So we're gonna increment back up. So I plus plus. So now I is equal to 4. Is I less than 4? No, I is not less than 4. 4 is not less than 4. 4 is equal to 4. So we stop at that point. So now if we were to run that, boom, John, Mike, Joe, Sue. All right. So let's talk about problem number 2. I'm just going to comment this guy out. So loop through and try to avoid ever copying and pasting code. It's a really bad habit and you never really learn the intricacies. If it's something really long and you know it works and you're pulling it from online, use it. But in this early stage, it's really beneficial to not copy this for loop and paste it down for this one. Rewrite it, maybe even just delete it. You don't really want to see it again. Otherwise, you are just going to copy it from site. So the second problem, loop through the list of people at roll call. Okay, so we're going to loop through these people. Is Jeff in there? If he is, console log he's here. If he's not, console log absent. This one's going to be a little bit trickier. I would give you the advice to have something above beforehand, and I would just call it something like let is Jeff here and start it at false. And if he's ever showing up in that list, set it to true. And then after your for loop with an if inside of it, then you're going to need to write another if else. And in that case, you're going to say, hey, if is Jeff here true, then console log he's here. Else console log absent. So that's a really good rundown for it, and hopefully it gives you enough information. So pause it now and see how far you can get. All right, hopefully that was enough time. So let's go through this. So again, always start with just writing out the proper syntax so you know it's going to be written right. First thing we're going to do is we're going to write let I start at 0. Now we're going to say, hey, as long as I, again, just people.length because we want to loop through each of them. So we're going to go until the size of it, which happens to be just one greater than each of the indexes. And then after we execute some stuff inside here for each loop, we're going to change I to be I plus 1. So let's say, hey, if people at our current iteration, our current loop, if that person is equal to Jeff, we're going to say is Jeff here is assigned true. And we will just leave it false in any other case. Because if John comes through, or if Mike comes through, or Joe, or Sue, we don't want to set it to true because we only want to see if we ever see a Jeff in here. Because if there is, then set Jeff equal to true. So now this Jeff over here has been reassigned to true only if Jeff is in there. And so once we're done with our for loop, we'll want to say if, I'm going to change this variable to be Jeff is here. It just sounds more phonetic than the other way around. If Jeff is here, then we're going to console.log he's here. Else, we will console log absent. Perfect. Let's see if that works. Absent. That's exactly what we want. So let's shove him in the middle of there and let's see if it actually works for when he's in the lineup. Let's see. Perfect. That looks good. So he's in there. He's right in the middle. Let's console log it. He's here. Perfect. And we can see that we just set this guy outside. That way, when we're logging it in here, because the problem is if we actually put this inside here, we're going to run into one big issue. Each time we loop through here, we're creating a brand new box in our garage, and only if it's true, and it's just going to get lost. There's nowhere this guy doesn't know what's happening inside here. This is a really good thing to teach real quick. So this is called scope. So the scope of a variable means how deep it can be seen. Because when you're reading a problem, it needs to be able to look down or look out. So see how I keep indenting whenever I go a little bit deeper in? So indented things can always see things that are outside, but things that are outside can't look inside. So before, when I had this out here, what it means is that this Jeff in here knows that this one already exists. So this guy will be talking about this guy. So I can always reset it to true. But the problem is when I move him down inside here, you can see the indentation level goes 1 too deep because it can't escape this block. It's trapped in here. It can't escape. I can see stuff up here. So I can use something that's up here, but I can't now be on this level. So when I'm saying if, this thing doesn't exist. So let's run it. Jeff is not defined. It's talking about this guy right here. It has no idea. Look at that. 18.1. 18. Boom. There it is. Line 18. Jeff is here. It doesn't know what it is. It was never defined. But see how if it's on the same scope, the same level, it's at the same depth, it can see it. So keep that in mind that whenever you need to keep some variable, some data stored somewhere, always keep it outside of for loops, unless you need it to be instantly created inside the for loop. But something that is outside can always be used inside. Something inside can't always be used outside of these nestings. But all right, there's two examples of for loops. Obviously, number two was a little bit more difficult. What I would do if you couldn't get it that very first time, just delete everything that you've written or copied from me and then try it one more time and see if you can get it to work. But we're going to move on to the next topic and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.